Hello everybody, I am Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming, and this video is going to be a little bit different. Normally when I play through a new game, I like to make impression videos throughout my experience about various topics or aspects and elements of the game, and how I'm feeling about them. Ordinarily, this results just in a first impressions video, in my series Mulling Over, and then like a finale, final thoughts / review video on the game as a whole, but sometimes I do periodic updates if there's more to talk about. Metaphor Refantazio is a game that's going to be the latter. It is the latest RPG by Atlus, the creators of Shin Megami Tensei and Persona. And Metaphor Refantazio, in a lot of ways, is Atlus taking ideas from both Shin Megami Tensei and Persona, putting them into one game and giving it all a fantasy twist. It was a game I was highly expecting to resonate a lot with me, and that I was expecting to like. I wasn't expecting it to click the way that it has for me. It's a game where I quite literally lose track of time on stream. That hasn't happened for me in a while. And it's a game that I fall more and more in love with the more I play it. And not just linearly, but like exponentially. I thought my game of the year this year was going to be a tight race between Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Black Myth Wukong. And maybe Astrobot could have something to say in regards to that, because I think this has been a really good year overall. Metaphor Refantazio has come in like a wrecking ball. And I'm still relatively early on, and an Atlus game is the only game besides an MMORPG where you can be 20 hours into the bloody thing and still say you just got out of the tutorial. But like, the beauty of Metaphor Refantazio for me isn't just that it has good combat, or that the story's interesting. No, what Metaphor Refantazio is, at the end of the day, is a culmination of all of Atlus's efforts and evolutions throughout Shin Megami Tensei and Persona. I cover Persona quite extensively on this channel, and one of the big things I always talk about there is if you want to tell what Atlus viewed to be a pro or a con, look at their games chronologically in release order, and look at the differences and the iterations going from one game to the next. Because when you do that, you can clearly see what they view to be a problem, or what they view to be cool, or what they view to just need a little bit of tweaking. You go from P3 to P4, and they change the pacing of social links, while also making each dungeon feel more unique as opposed to just a new block of Tartarus. You then go to P5, and they completely change their dungeon design to be more involved, for there to be scenarios, little bits of story sprinkled throughout. The dungeons overall aren't just linear corridors anymore, though that's still there with mementos. Now they take the form of these sprawling infiltrations with various rooms that have simple but unique mechanics to them, and each dungeon feels fundamentally different, not just in terms of aesthetic or what song plays, but also in terms of the gameplay. In Persona 5, you have something called Showtime Attacks, which is essentially a mechanic that I think you can kind of guess when it activates, but for me at least, it felt mostly RNG in terms of when they were available to you to utilize, and they were largely just a hunk of damage that you dealt to the enemy. That mechanic, that idea, is tweaked going into Persona 3 Reload, leading to the idea of theurgy mechanics, which is a gauge that you fill up based on what unique traits that character has, and the unique qualifications that character has to fill that bar up, and then the individual theurgy abilities are unique with different effects. You can do this with nearly every element of that game, and I imagine if you can also do it with Shin Megami Tensei, though I am very not familiar with that series personally. And I'm someone who loves Persona, and I love that structure of a game that they have in Persona. Metaphor Refantazio comes in and pretty much says, okay, what did we get right in Persona 5? Let's do more of that. What did we get wrong? Let's change it. And what can we alter to make it even more compelling and engaging and fun? Metaphor Refantazio has an incredible pace to it. Royal virtues are basically the social stats of this game. Essentially, the stats for the main protagonist that are separate from combat. And you level up these social stats by completing certain side quests, or doing various activities in the overworld like reading books, weapon training, giving speeches to the public, etc., etc. Leveling these social stats in Persona, some could argue, to be rather boring, because it's essentially just this separate activity, you click that that you want to do. You do the activity, you get some points, Bob's your uncle. There's no real input required for most of that. Nothing's really developing. The reason myself and many others enjoy that mechanic is because it's a part of the grander strategy of the game and the scheduling idea that Persona has. But in Metaphor Refantazio, you have these mechanics with the royal virtues, but the twist they do is that things can happen while you level them. If you read books, you have a dialogue about the book you're reading with your fairy companion Gallica. If you deliver speeches to the public to increase your eloquence, there's a choice you can make to resonate more with the people there to gain additional points. Also gives you a brief insight to how the people think because they respond to you. If you train with Stroll or Hulkenberg, you'll have a dialogue with them and you get some more moments of characterization. This is something that I'm finding more and more I play of Metaphor Refantazio, is they're able to inject characterization in a lot of moments that you wouldn't expect it to be there. And I think this does a lot, because these scenes individually don't contribute all that much, but when taken together, they make the cast, in my opinion, better, more personable, more relatable, more engaging, more entertaining, because we have more moments with these characters in different lights. Or it's fleshing out the world, fleshing out various NPCs and characters. And the game is a particularly brilliant mechanic. The idea of the game is that you're going around this fantasy world, trying to perform different objectives so that you can gain more recognition to become the king. The game is essentially a giant election/tournament arc. And to navigate the world, you have this vehicle called a Gauntlet runner. And to go to various locations or dungeons, it may take up in-game days, but instead of just fast-forwarding time, you can do things en route. And you can do things like hanging out with your companions to further their social links, or performing certain activities to level up your royal virtues in addition to what you can naturally find in town. It adds diversity to the gameplay mechanics, but also the tone, because you feel as if you can get a lot done. If I have to go to a dungeon because a quest wants me to go there to tend to a mob or something, I can still get things done en route there, things that I don't do when I'm in town. So the game is this brilliant balancing act that I loved out of Persona with the scheduling, but just with a different light here, with different nuance, and it's a refreshing taste. Like, you may love a milkshake, but to me, Metaphor Refantazio is a milkshake of a different flavor, and a flavor that I was unfamiliar with. But I really like this flavor. It tastes yummy. It's delicious. It's coating my mouth. I like it. I want more of it. And with the way the game is structured, the more towns I visit and get to, the more activities that I'll have. And the game has a mechanic to instantly bring you back to previous towns that you've been to. So if you missed out on certain things, you can just go right back and do them. And it lets the game feel as if it just gets bigger and bigger, but manageably. So it never feels overwhelming, at least not yet to me. And like in Persona, where leveling courage could possibly get a bit boring because you just go into the same burger shop over and over and over and over again doing the food challenge, that can get repetitive. It can get stale. Here, though, there's various activities for each of these things. Different locations have different podiums that I can give speeches to different crowds of people. I can do different things to level up my courage, or my tolerance, or my eloquence, or my wisdom. A lot of these activities will either expand on the world in some way, or give me more moments with the main cast of characters, and by doing so, I end up caring more about the world, these individual locations, and the characters. This game has amazing world building because it's able to take what worked in Atlus's previous titles, but twist them in just the right way to work in this fantasy environment. It shows how flexible and how brilliant this design actually is at the end of the day, and how multi-purpose that it can be. I haven't even talked about the combat. This is what I'm talking about. With Metaphor Refantazio, it is a game that is firing in all cylinders. It is a game where every element works with each other to create a more cohesive, engaging product. Because I always feel as if I have something to do, something interesting to do, and I have options of what to do. Does the game have illusion of choice every now and then? Yes. But the game gives me interesting choice consistently in terms of how I'm scheduling my time in-game. I can go to this dungeon, which I can get to within a day, so I can still make it back to town by night, or this other place is a day away, so I'll be on the Gauntlet runner longer. So maybe if I have more things I need to do there in the Gauntlet runner, I should do it then. Oh, I have 3 days until I need to set out for this main story quest. How am I gonna budget my time accordingly? Do I want to go do this dungeon, then this other dungeon, because that'll take a certain amount of time, or do I want to do various overworld side quests, level up my social links, or even my royal virtues and stuff like that? I have so many ways to tackle this and ways to budget my time. I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything, it's just how do I want to maximize my time? And as someone who enjoys the scheduling component of Persona, this to me is a beautiful iteration of that idea. But also, it gives me plenty of opportunity and time to engage with the combat in this game. A lot of the times in Persona, it is optimal to dump your entire dungeon run for that section of time into one specific day, because that gives you more time to do the overworld stuff for the rest of the time, so you're more efficient. In Metaphor Refantazio, though, they give you numerous dungeons that you can go and do for various side quests, which, by the way, can also, or bounties, which are like hunts in this game, where it's like, hey, there's this big named enemy who's kind of bad, can you go deal with them in this location? It'll take you probably a day to get there. Go talk to the informant, he might tell you what its weakness is and what you may want to prepare to go against them. Really cool stuff like that. By the way, it reminds me of The Witcher. But the game gives me plenty of opportunities to engage with the combat, so it feels better paced in my opinion. So I'm not just going through giant chunks of the game without any combat. I have options here. And even when I choose to spend the day going to a dungeon, because I have to be on the Gauntlet runner, I can still do an activity to level up a social stat to hang out with an NPC. Some social ranks for these characters require being on the Gauntlet runner, so I can plan my time again accordingly. This kind of stuff just clicks with me. And we also have just how fun the combat is. The combat is very much in the line of Shin Megami Tensei with the turn mechanic, right? But I really like the archetype mechanic. Leveling up my archetypes, getting new ranks for them, having my archetypes evolve with the effort that I put in. I've already evolved various archetypes to the adept level. So the game has incredible pacing in terms of just the progression in the combat as well. It's super nice. And the loot can be really interesting. Like the sword you get from the dragon, or this lance or spear that I got from the goblin dungeon, or the set of fist weapons I got from the first main story dungeon. The game overall just feels very well designed, and to me is a great evolution of Atlus's gameplay mechanics and design over the years. The dungeons aren't just linear corridors, they're more in the style of, say, P5, but they're not filled wall to wall with wacky, goofy events or anything like that. The focus is still on the combat, focused on the mobs, but you get different environments, different level design, paths to go off the beaten trail for potential loot or things to discover. And you pair all of that up with combat that is really fun, strategic, and customizable, because you can choose what archetype each character has, but you can also inherit skills from other unlocked archetypes onto your current archetype, so you can mix and match various abilities for all your party members. I am someone where if I do any one thing for too long, I will naturally get bored of it and want something new. If I stare at any one biome for too long, or like any one aesthetic for too long, I'll get kind of bored of it. I like having that sense of variety, and Metaphor Refantazio is a game that is well paced and has that variety, so it strikes, at least early on for me, this beautiful balance in pacing all of its different ways to interface with the game, to level up your character in different ways, to interact with the story. It does a really good job of pacing everything for me, and it's a game that has really clicked for me. And it's a game where when I'm not playing it, I am thinking of playing it. And it's a game where when I am playing it, I just want to continue playing it. And if the game can keep up this enjoyment that I'm getting out of of it, it very well may just leapfrog into being my game of the year. Like, I think it'll be close this year, but like, I expected to like Metaphor Refantazio. I didn't expect to love it the way that I have been. And then you also have things like the music being awesome. I love the voiceovers in the game. Like, maybe I wish there was a bit more voice acting, especially for the social links, because I got like voice social links in Persona 3 Reload. Would have liked to have had them here, sure, but I have no overarching great issues with this game. I just want to play more of it, and I just want to talk more about it. Like, legit, that's why I made this video. I just wanted to talk about this game, because I can't stop thinking about it. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out, helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody, until we meet again.